Hey guys, welcome back to Pre-Production. Thank you so much for listening once again. I have a guest here today that I am so excited to be sitting with. Her name is Jennifer Kent. She is the director of The Babadook, as well as The Nightingale, and one of the best episodes of Cabinet of Curiosities, The Murmuring. Her film, The Babadook, is going to be opening once again for its 10th anniversary, September 19th. Oh my God, I can't even begin to tell you. You're one of my favorite filmmakers, Jennifer. The first time I saw The Babadook, it is one of the very few movies that truly disturbed me and unsettled me to such an emotional degree that I'm kind of warped, and I instantly wanted to show everybody that I know the movie. I was like, this really fucked with me. You guys have to watch this shit too. It's so good. So it's a real honor to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I've actually followed you too. I've seen a lot of your reviews, and I really love what you said about Babadook. I really appreciated it, and
thank you.
Yeah, keen to have a chat.
I think what's so interesting about talking to someone 10 years after their film is released, like I've like talking to Mike Flanagan about Oculus. He also had his 10-year anniversary for Oculus this year, and he mentioned that when it first came out, he kind of, you know, it was such a shocking jolt to a filmmaker to have this thing that's been in your head for so long. It's been very personal. You know, it's very much like a child that you have somehow birthed and brought into fruition. And now you're giving it to other people and you're saying, hey, pick this apart. What does this mean to you? It's no longer yours. It's everyone else's. And it must be such a surreal experience to experience now, like this group of people who adore your film, who are all coming back to want to see it again, who are excited to see it on a big screen, who maybe never got to see it on a big screen. How does that feel for you 10 years after making this thing? You know, what is that like in your brain?
It's incredible. I mean, when it opened 10 years ago, it opened on 2 screens, you know, and now it's opening on 500 screens. So for me, it's quite surreal. I do feel a lot of love for the film, and it's very meaningful for me as a filmmaker because, especially your first film, you don't have any relationship with the outside world as a filmmaker. So it's not just this film, it's your whole, you know, are they going to reject what I'm saying? Is this going to be not seen at all? Is it going to just be a blip and then forgotten? But to have a film that's remembered 10 years after it's made is really astounding to me, you know, and so I'm very, very happy to be coming to America and having the Q&As and really seeing people face to face and talking with them about the film.
I think that 2014 was kind of a transformative period for horror, and I think that your film was right at the center of it. The 2000s were very like torture-y. We had a lot of those types of films. And Hollywood was trying to figure out exactly, you know, what horror was. Could it be personal? Could it feel like it was deeply impactful on a human level, but also have a commercial sensibility to it and still get people to see it? And there were these films coming out in that time period, like Oculus, like your film, like movies like The Pact or something along those lines, that felt like indie horror sort of reclaiming itself and becoming something that became not just critically successful, but commercially successful. And when I saw Essie Davis in your film, I genuinely felt like, okay, we're getting back to like this really great, gritty, emotionally powerful horror. She is so phenomenal in your movie. And I believe you guys went to school together, right?
Yeah, she's incredible. I mean, she's also a very dear friend of mine. And, you know, she was in Kate Blanchett's year. I was in the year above them at NIDA, which was our National Institute here of Dramatic Art. And I'd always loved Essie as an actress. You know, she was astounding on stage, just incredible. And I was really feeling her for this, but I didn't know. We were such good friends. I didn't know if we could work together. So poor S, I made her audition. And it wasn't like to check her acting skills or anything like that. It was just to see how we could relate, whether we could take on that new director-actor relationship. And she was just the bomb. She was incredible. So in the first few minutes, I thought, oh, this is going to work. And then we set off on that journey. But yeah, in terms of making horror or making a film that, you know, was labeled as horror in that time, it was very, very difficult to get Babadook made. You know, even on a budget of 1.6 US million, funding bodies here at the time were very snobbish about horror. It was seen as really the poor cousin of drama or anything else besides horror. Even up till the final cut, there was this real resistance to it being a film and being in the world. I mean, yeah, I had a lot of resistance in that fine cut screening, and it was only, thank God, that me and the producers had final cut that we were able to protect and save the film. You know, it's never about winning awards, but the film did win a lot of Australian Academy Awards, actor awards, and I had people from various parts of the industry coming up to me on that night, apologizing for their resistance to the film.
That must have felt not too bad.
Yeah, I felt a little bit vindicated, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
For anyone listening who's embarking on making films or, you know, is writing their feature film, I just encourage you to be super protective of your film and however, in whatever way you can. Because I have seen filmmakers, certainly first-time filmmakers or early filmmakers who gave up on their film, you know, to please financiers. And I know it's really hard to not do that, but, you know, it's your film. If they gave you the money to make it, they need to give you the money to protect it. They give you the power to protect it. It's the most important thing, I feel. I mean, if you look at the history of horror, it's really an independent sort of realm. You know, people have gone in and the best horror, the horror that endures and is classic, you know, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Halloween to all, I mean, even earlier, all these sort of, you know, Carl Dreyer's Vampire and all these other early silent films even, or semi-silent films, they were all made independently with an independent vision. What studios don't tend to understand is when they interfere, they're reducing something, they're taking away.
Did you have to go through, I'm not sure if with the Babadook, if you had to go through the test screening process, but was that something that you were submitted to as well, having to deal with all that feedback and be like, okay, so like.
And, you know, it was kind of, I would see some of them, you know, it's like, you know, drawings of a penis on the form. This film sucks balls and, you know, and I think, well, and I even remember when we were at Sundance and I was in the first screening, you know, they do that torturous thing where you have to sit in and watch it. And as soon as the lights went down, the lights went up at the end of the film, the woman in front of me said, well, that was crap.
Oh.
And that was my first ever, you know, sort of response. But then after that, this wave of good and bad, but you know, largely good came back. You have to be pretty tough as a filmmaker to endure a release of a film, I think.
Everything that you ate for the past day just wants to evacuate immediately, whether it's from the end or the front, like it's gonna come out. And
it's horrible.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's horrible. Did you have to sit in? Did you sit in with your film? I mean, when I say have to, it can be a wonderful experience too, but it is certainly nerve-wracking.
Yeah, if somebody laughs or chuckles, you're like, that wasn't supposed to be funny. Like, what the fuck? Like, what did I do? Like, you know, and it's just a nightmare.
Or if there's silence, it's like, why are they so quiet? What's happening?
Yeah. For me and everyone that I spoke to at the time, you know, fellow writers, lovers of horror, lovers of genre back in 2014, we were all just so impressed by that movie. And I have continued to be inspired by it for years. And I watch it, you know, all the time. I'd love to kind of talk about trying to get that film made. I can't imagine that it was easy because you mentioned before in an interview that I read that you first started acting because you didn't think that women directed and that it wasn't something that you were privy to. And I would love to know what that journey was to sort of discovering that, well, fuck yes, I can.
I mean, for me, some people don't know what they would want to do with their life, and that's fine, of course. They discover it as they go. But for me, even as so precocious as it sounds, at 4 and 5, I knew I wanted to tell stories and write them, direct them, act in them. I just had this weird sort of innate sense of what I wanted to do. And so I did it at school and at high school. I had every opportunity to write and direct and act. They were like the three things that I did. And then I went to NIDA. And in the first year at NIDA, we had to do this piece, which they actually put together to get everyone to fail. These group devised pieces where they would say, okay, go and do this thing. And then they watch us all fail and then say, see, you need to be here. This is why. And what I did, I was in charge of one group. And so I got everyone in our year to direct one of the chapters of, I don't know, it was some Greek tragedy. I can't remember, but it was really good. And then I was overseer of everything. And they were really pissed off. And they said to me, you didn't come here to direct, you came here to act. So, and I was trying to find ways to direct all the time. And then I just gave up. And then I became an actor. And I'm a pretty good actor. I understand the process of acting, and I think it's helped me direct. But sort of about 2 or 3 years out of drama school, I was really frustrated with it. I mean, I did a lot of Shakespeare, which I loved. And for any storyteller, that's the absolute pinnacle of storytelling. You learn a lot performing that, or Chekhov, or, a lot of other sort of classics. So I was very grateful for that time. But then I started to think, I can't not direct. How am I going to do this? So that was sort of in the 90s. And, women in film, there weren't very many of us back then. I mean, there was Jane Campion, Gillian Armstrong. There was a few smattered across the world. But I just decided, okay, I'm going to be a film director. That's really what I've wanted to do all along, And so I didn't want to go to film school. I find that when I study something, I lose the love of it. There's something about education that brings everything down to a common denominator. And I knew that I was a bit weird, and that my vision for things was a lot, perhaps at times, off center, and I wanted to retain that. So I remember sitting in the cinema watching Dancer in the Dark, the Lars von Trier film, and at the end, I just sort of leapt up and said, I want to work with that director. I want to learn from him. My friends who I was with, I think they thought I was nuts. They said, okay, well, go for it. So I found out his email address. I got a friend to ring Filmboen in Denmark and find out Lars von Trier's email address. And
That's incredible.
They gave it to me, or they gave it to my friend, which is sort of crazy and Danish of them to do that. and then I wrote to him and I said, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes than go to film school, and I just need to come and learn what you're doing over there because you're making the most exciting films. I'd also seen Festen, Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That film, incredible Danish film. But I thought there's just something anarchic and alive in them all. I got a message back from his assistant. Lars has read your email. He wants to know what you want to do. And and then there was a matter of me just going there for one day. So I flew from Australia to Sweden, to Denmark first, and then to Sweden, just on the promise of one day. And then I ended up staying the whole time. I know now, being on the set, you don't want someone just sitting there watching what you're doing. So they put me to work. And they were very lovely and put me to work in and around the set so I could see what was going on. It was just the most incredible film school.
And what film was he shooting at the time?
Dog film.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you shadowed him throughout all and worked.
Yeah, I was a snow shoveler and a shit kicker and a driver. I mean, the biggest thing that it gave me was this sense of, but before that, I thought there's us and there's them. So there's them as in the exalted filmmakers, and then there's us, everyone else, the hideous, lowly wannabes over in another corner. And then I realized through watching Lars that he was just a person, which sounds so obvious, but he was struggling. He was also exceeding beyond anyone's capacity. He was everything all at once. And to see that up close, it gave me the courage I needed to just say, fuck it, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to devote my life to it. Whether it fails, or whether it succeeds, I'm going to do it. And so I couldn't have got that at film school, I don't think. I mean, I think we come in with talents which can be developed, but that's sort of preordained on a certain level. That was my film school.
That's absolutely, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories of that's one of the coolest ones I've heard. I mean, it must have been so euphoric to be sitting there. I mean, to have seen his film and be like, that's it. I'm doing that. I don't know what else to do. That's it. And then to be on
Yeah,
set with him and watch
yeah.
him work. I mean, what a great, incredible story
It was
that is.
incredible. I mean, also, I will say, like, at one point, the producer was having trouble with this person, that person. So she went through and was culling anyone unnecessary from the production. So obviously, I'm the first one to go, right? Or one of the first. And she came in and she said, I think you're going to have to leave. You know, you can stay there the rest of the week. And I said, I'm not going. And she said, oh. And I just said, I'm not going. I've come all the way from Australia. I've done nothing wrong. I won't get in your way. I'm not going. I'm a free worker, you know. And so I think she admired the fact that I just refused to.
I love that. I'm not leaving. That's great. Everyone should remember that. I'm not leaving.
Please don't all contact Lars von Trier.
Yeah. Hey, I'm on your set. I'm not leaving. No, that's so great. That's so great.
I just wanted to make films so much that, you know, and I'd always been drawn to European films and still am. I mean, they're my biggest inspiration. You know, there was a Robert Bresson retrospective on recently at the local Cinematheque, and there were all these beautiful films for free. And it was just my heaven.
I'm at the movies as often as I can. This year has been amazing for theatrical re-releases. There's been so many. This is not the same type of movie as the Babadook, but just last night, Friday the 13th, the final chapter was in theaters nationwide. And
Amazing.
I went to a packed theater and saw Jason kill a bunch of people. So, you know, I mean,
It's so fantastic. And
yeah.
it's so different, right? It's
Mhm.
cinema, like being in a movie theater is so different.
Oh, it's completely different. There was a 1984 series that just happened in Cinemark theaters because all these movies had their 40th anniversary. You had Gremlins and Ghostbusters, and I went and saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in a theater, which is often referred to as one of the lesser films, and I was just kind of blown away by it on the big screen.
Yeah.
It was so transformative. I'm going to be first in line to see the Babadook when it comes out. I can't wait to see it in the theater again. But I'm curious, after that experience you had, you know, working as a PA with Lars von Trier, you obviously have some more time there in between the release of the Babadook, and so you make your short. You're trying to get something. You're trying to get financing. I can only assume that it was not easy. I'd love it to know kind of like what that experience was like for you.
No, it wasn't easy then. It's not easy now, I might say. Trying to get feel I've written so many films in the last several years, you know. Being quite naive, I think, in what I could get financed. I wrote quite a lot of ambitious films. I think I wrote 6 or 7 scripts. I don't regret writing any of those scripts. And if someone had given me the money to make most of them, I probably would have been embarrassed to release them. So they were my writing, you know, school, I guess. But then I thought, oh man, I'm never going to get any of these made. I'm going to have to write a really low-fi film with 2 characters in a house. I'd made Monster, but I wasn't intending to make a feature about the story. What can I make a story about that's meaningful to me? And I think Monster was sort of the short Monster was floating around, and the idea was still relevant on some level. And I'd thought about giving up. I thought, well, I'm clearly not cut out for this. You know, I feel I have talent and something to say, but I can't get anything made. So I thought either I go and try somewhere else other than the Australian filmmaking system, which I'm not having success at, or I give up. And at the time, my dad died. And then when a parent dies, well, for me anyway, life completely changed. I loved my dad. I was in a deep state of grieving and I wanted to talk about that. And I also became quite sort of philosophical about grief and, you know, saw in my own experience of losing my dad, saw the people around me and their response to me, if that makes sense. And, you know, you see someone pushing down on their grief or being very uncomfortable with grief. And that got me thinking, wow, what would happen to a person who couldn't grieve? You know, how would that be for them? That must be. And so I started to inhabit that space, emotionally, mentally started to think about that. And then I thought, well, what if that thing became so strong? Because if you don't feel something, it just it becomes stronger. It doesn't go away, unfortunately. I felt, what if this thing sort of split off from this person and became this real thing? And that's how the idea was born. And in terms of where I developed it, I knew that the Australian system would hate this idea. So I'd heard about being a film lab in Amsterdam, which unfortunately no longer exists. But at the time in the Netherlands, it was a very amazing liberal, as in free-thinking government. And so they'd had this being a film lab that basically brought in people from all over the world, not just the Netherlands, to write. They had a 6 month writing lab. And I think they had a similar directing lab as well. I had to pay for my accommodation, but everything else they supplied, a script editor, and they married the script editor to the filmmaker. There were, 15, I think, other people in my year, in my intake, from all around the world. Amazing filmmakers, amazing people from everywhere. And they also commented on your script. So it was all orchestrated. And I wrote 2 drafts of the Babadook in that time. I just didn't stop. I was determined to make the film ASAP. I had the script editor who'd worked on that wonderful Swedish vampire film, Help Me Out Here.
Let the Right One In.
Yeah, Let the Right One In. And she was just incredible. She said, I don't want to hear about structure, 3-act structure. I don't want to hear about all that crowd, but I just want you to tell the story. And so that's what I did. I wrote completely from me. And I was in a foreign country in the winter, Amsterdam, one of the best cities in the world, and making all these friends, but having a lot of time to dream and grieve, away from home. And that's what came out.
And I felt it when I saw it for the first time. It did not feel like someone who was trying to make a movie just purely to entertain or to get something, to get something on the books. You made a film that really came out of you emotionally.
It did. And I'm like that as a filmmaker. I mean, I've been offered a lot of films, and not to sound like a wanker, as they say in Australia, but I have, and I've unfortunately had to turn them down because I can't make a film that I don't connect with.
Right.
And it's meant that I've made less films, because people don't always want to make the films that you want to make. Ultimately, I feel that that's the way I'm meant to exist with this. So I'm just going with it.
Your second film, The Nightingale, is equally as disturbing. I saw that in the theater and I felt physically nauseous. And I mean that as a huge compliment. I mean, that film is just absolutely beautiful.
Well, it's like my ugly child that I'm always trying to put out and say, have you seen this child? Have you seen this one? I mean, I love that film, as in I'm very proud of that film.
Yeah.
It took a lot out of everyone to make that, as you can imagine. And it was made in, wilderness, semi-wilderness. And it wasn't an easy film to make. But yeah, that again, I had this idea about revenge and how pointless. I was disturbed by all the violence in the world at the time, really deeply disturbed, and I wanted to talk about it. I think a lot of people miss the point with that film. It's a classic, don't shoot the messenger. I researched that film for like 5 years to make it true to what happened. But
I mean, it was so impactful and like I said, gorgeously shot, beautiful. Ashleen Franciosi is amazing in the film. And she's had a great career since then too. I mean, that's the first time I saw her. She's got a movie out this weekend, Speak No Evil. And so,
she's incredible.
Yeah.
She was so perfect for that role in every way. And Bakerly Ganenbar, he'd never acted before, who played Billy.
Right.
It was just, I look on it now with such fondness, because we worked with Palawa people, the elder Jim Everett, Uncle Jim Everett, we fashioned that story together. It's a very, very special experience.
It's an incredible film. So I'm going to wrap up with one more quick question because unfortunately I am getting the rug pulled out from underneath me. I could talk to you for 3 hours.
I believe it's already over.
All these years later, after making this film and making such an impact with it, and now you're getting people to fill into theaters to see it again, it must feel rather surreal. You've worked with, someone like Guillermo del Toro obviously looks at you and says that there's somebody I want to work with.
Yeah.
How must that feel? That level of that must be validating to know that you went through that struggle to come out the other end of the wood chipper, so to speak, and have people look at you and say, that's someone I want to be.
Yeah. I mean, when Guillermo said there was one scare in the murmuring, and he went, Jennifer, you are the shit. You are the shit. No, Guillermo, you are the shit, but thank you.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's wonderful to be seen. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's more meaningful to be seen by your peers, you know, like Billy Friedkin sort of writing to me as well. We gave him a Babadook book and writing back. And I really, really regret not meeting up with him. He said, anytime you're in LA, please come and see me. And I think I was a bit too scared. I wish I had have. To me, other filmmakers, I mean, filmmaking, you know, is to me an art form. It really is. And to be seen by people who you revere is something very special. And also to reach audiences who love it is. So I hope people come out to see this, you know, because I feel seeing films in the cinema is just the best.
Oh, they
It's the
will.
best.
And what's going to be so great is that everyone who comes to see it is like a lover of this movie. It's just going to be
Yeah.
a tidal wave of love. So again, if you haven't seen The Babadook ever, you can now see it for the first time in a theater, which I strongly recommend, September 19th. It is one of my favorite horror movies, period. Miss Kent, I will watch anything you make ever for the rest of time. Please make more stuff as soon as you can. So find something personal that you want to make.
I've got something very, very exciting that I can't say now, but it's
Okay.
a famous horror author, and it's not Stephen King,
Oh, hell yeah.
who might be teaming up on one of his books in the near future, and that's all I'm going to say.
I just got goosebumps right here on my arm, so that's great.
But Chris, all the best with your film as well. Like,
Thank you.
well done. Congratulations on making it. And I can't wait to see it. And,
Thank you.
you know, just keep going, doing what you do. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of your junkets and presses and all that. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks, Chris.